Hey, Richard.
Yeah, buddy.
Guess what time it is now?
Time to get out of the cold and hit Orlando for Dev Intersection?
What? Yeah, that's right. March 25th to 28th at the Swan Hotel in Orlando for another great Dev Intersection. All your favorites are going to be there, including Scott Guthrie and Scott Hanselman.
Ah, the greater and lesser Scott.
Yes.
And if SQL is your thing, Paul Randall and Kim Tripp are, as usual, running an awesome set of SQL sessions.
And this year at Dev Intersection, we have a special emphasis on new artificial intelligence technologies, including deep learning, cognitive services, and more.
And of course, all the latest web tech, Angular, C#, Visual Studio, all your favorites.
So go to devint.netrocks.com right now and register. Sign up for a workshop as well, and you'll get some cool hardware.
We'll see you there.
Welcome back to .NET Rocks. This is Carl Franklin.
And this is Richard Campbell.
Back from London, finally.
Yeah.
We had a good time there.
Yes, we're slipping a few studio shows in amongst all the NDC episodes, just for fun.
Just for fun. This should be a good one. We're going to be talking security and humanitarian efforts and all of that stuff. But first, we have this wonderful little thing called Better Know a Framework.
Awesome. All right, dude, what do you got?
You better know it.
You better know.
You better know it.
Are you channeling your inner Scottish person? Is that what that is? Oh, he's sneaking out. That's what happens when we go to the UK, right?
I know, yeah.
And I actually popped up to Scotland for a couple of days before the show. So.
Yes, don't rub it in.
Oh, no, I'm not going to write. You don't even want to see what was stuffed in my bag. My goodness.
I imagine it was quite heavy.
It was a little overweight.
I found this one. It's trending. Passbolt, a password manager your team was waiting for. Free, open source, self-hosted, extensible, open PGP based.
Interesting.
It's passbolt.com. And I wondered why teams. It says it works with tools your team already uses, such as your email client and chat. So I guess it's a little more focused on team software. But that doesn't mean it has to be, right?
Right.
And some of the other things they brag about, that it's open source and free, it's extensible by design. You can start building on top of the API. It's got open security standards like GNU-PG to authenticate users. Really good tools and well-tested. And they say it's free as in freedom. 100% open source. No strings attached.
Yeah, community edition is. It looks like they're going to have an enterprise edition at some point.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, that's fine. You know, everybody's got to start somewhere, and it's certainly worth taking over a spin. Do you use a password manager?
No, I mean, it's essentially what I do is I keep a secure document locked away somewhere that I can easily search when I need to find passwords. And I don't actually put the passwords in there. I just put the password hints.
Right.
So the passwords I remember, and I just have a document under lock and key.
I get it.
I've been a little gun shy about that, especially in the light of the hacked password managers and things like that.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to be talked into it.
Yeah, I switched over to Password Manager a number of years ago, and it just wouldn't, the fact that I simply don't know my passwords, they're all different. I don't know them. It just makes life a whole bunch simpler.
Yeah. And I guess until your password manager goes away, and then you're kind of screwed. So
yeah. Well, if the internet goes away, we're kind of screwed too.
Well, there you go. There is that. Who's talking to us today, Richard?
Grabbed a comment off of show 1470, the one we did with Mr. Barry Dorans, talking about security and ASP.NET Core. Mm-hmm. That was back at NDC Oslo. Barry's always slightly, he's a security guy, so he's grumpy.
And not subdued, really.
Not a subdued guy either. No. He lots of good comments on that show. People were pretty excited. But I grabbed this particular one. This is from Alex Dresko, who said, by far, the best way to stay up to date with the latest security happenings is the SANS Internet Storm Center podcast. And he provides a link, which I'll put in the show notes. And I've gone and listened to this. They literally put out a daily show, 10, 15 minutes long. It's just like, this is the current set of issues in the security space right now.
Wow.
So totally, if this is on your mind, if this is what you care about, the fact that you can have a little hit basically every day, of where they're at. And they actually have on the website, there's sort of a current status level, like green, yellow, red. So if there's a major crisis going on, when Spectre and first came out, they were flagged red for a while they were dealing with that. But the moment, when we're recording this show anyway, which is, a month before it's going to be published, it's green. It won't be for long, but it is at the moment.
Okay.
Anyway, it's just, I thought it was a great resource. And Alex, thanks so much for pointing it out to us, because if that's, on your mind and you want that steady fix, we only hit security subjects every month or so.
Right.
And these guys are literally tapping it every day.
Yeah. Cool.
So, Alex, thank you so much for your comment. A .NET Rocks mug is on its way to you. And if you'd like a .NET Rocks mug, write a comment on the website at .NETRocks.com or via any of our social media, because we publish every show to Facebook and Google+. And if you comment there and we read it on the show, we'll send you a mug.
And definitely follow us on Twitter. I'm at Carl Franklin. He's at Rich Campbell. Send us a tweet. We only read the hashes. Trust me, they're safe. They're safe. All right, let's introduce our guests, Cameron Birge and Tarek Dawoud. Cameron, as the Microsoft Philanthropies Humanitarian Response Manager, has the responsibility for coordinating across the company the provision of resources to external agencies providing humanitarian relief during sudden onset humanitarian disasters. As with others on the team, he also has a portfolio of other engagement areas with nonprofits to include awareness on data privacy and cybersecurity issues. Tarek Dawoud is Principal Program Manager and Architect in the Azure Active Directory Customer Success team. Tarek works closely with customers who are deploying Azure AD identity scenarios to help them design and implement their solutions to their employees or consumers smoothly and securely. He's an 11-year veteran of Microsoft, 10 of them in the identity division. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, who should we start with? Cameron, I guess I'd just like to sort of introduce the topic of the show. This is obviously something near and dear to Richard Campbell's heart. But how did you guys meet? How did we get here? You and Richard, I mean.
That's a great question. I feel like it was an email in an inbox somewhere.
Yeah, well, it all actually starts with our friend Jill Tennant, isn't it? I was at the NetHope conference representing Humanitarian Toolbox, and Jill was there representing Microsoft Philanthropies, along with a bunch of other folks. And, you have a coffee and a conversation. And this particular topic about security and its issues around not-for-profits came up. She says, you know who you should talk to? You should talk to Cameron. And then there was an email exchange. And I think, we even had a chance to have coffee in person, too, because, I'm in Redmond all the time. So was able to pop down and have a visit. And here we are.
And I mean, what we had done out of the team is we had put together some guidance for our nonprofits, and it's a paper we released, cybersecurity guidance and data privacy concerns for nonprofits. And it sort of built on that. And it's part of the awareness that we try to do with our partners and help them come up to speed and use our guidance and our knowledge to get them the next steps forward. So that's how we ended up here.
That's very cool. So the Humanitarian Toolbox, obviously a big passion of Richard's. So I'm just going to pass football to you, Richard, and let you take over this conversation, because I'm feeling a little like a duck out of water.
Well, one of the reasons I care about this topic is that we are collecting contact information for our donors, the developers that contribute to our projects. There's a lot of conversations that go on, and there's a liability tied into that I don't know that your average nonprofit person necessarily thinks about.
Right.
Does that come up with you, Cameron? Like, are you sort of reminding them that this is an issue?
We are. I mean, it comes up throughout the industry. And obviously, like any industry, there are some that are more advanced than others, but it definitely is. We're trying to raise awareness to ensure that the leaders and managers understand that this is something they need to be aware of, and that in the end, they're going to hold some responsibility for. I think we've all seen it in a lot of nonprofits and a lot of companies are the same way, where the attitude by some senior managers can be, well, it's an IT issue. I don't need to worry about it. Computers just work. Well, it's actually not the case anymore. They need to actually understand how they're operating and what policies they're following, and ensuring those policies are meeting both legal standards and the expectations of their donors, and the liability they have for their beneficiaries. So it's part of that whole awareness conversation piece that we're trying to have with them.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of angles to this. The first one is don't be a stepping stone. What we're seeing in the security industry is that hackers try and bash their heads against big enterprise customer security. They're having resistance, and they try to work their way down the stream. So they will go against a small nonprofit that's working with a bigger nonprofit that's working with the big enterprise to work their way up by compromising the smaller one, then sending phishing emails from that one to the bigger one to the big enterprise. And so no nonprofit wants to be a stepping stone in a hack attack. The other one is, as Cameron said, is basically without IT, you still have to ask some of these questions. You have a donor database. Who has access to it? Let's say it's on paper, no tech. Who has access to it?
Right.
And then you have a management database, and people, there are sensitive information about people's troubles and life worries and the sicknesses and diseases and things like that. Who has access to it as well, regardless of tech, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting angle. It's just a conversation in general. Do you feel like not-for-profits are targeted sites for hackers, or are they just drive-bys?
It can be both, and I think a lot of it will depend on the operations of the nonprofits. Some nonprofits work in very sensitive areas. In those areas, the reason they're sensitive is because they're targeted by what you could call malicious actors from a wide spectrum of backgrounds who are going to seek access to that information. I mean, if you are an agency that's providing support to areas in a conflict zone or areas whereby the humanitarian emergency is derived from political instability, then there are groups who are going to be vulnerable. And support for those groups, other actors are going to want to know what's going on and have access to that information.
Yeah, freedom of the press, human trafficking, even things that may look very benign, there may be bad actors who don't want you to succeed.
And I'm going to put my naive hat on at this moment and go, well, the organizations that work in scary places like that are advanced and organized and have strong IT teams, right?
Many do. And a lot of it is you can also have nonprofits that are trying to do the right thing, but a lot of them are subject to the same funding issues like anybody else. I mean, one of the things about the awareness that we're trying to do is actually not just for the nonprofits, but to raise awareness for the donors that trying to emphasize low operational overhead or not providing money for core infrastructure, you're actually increasing the risk for the agency you're trusting to run very sensitive programs. And they need to be more open to having those conversations with nonprofits to ensure that they're operating with the right tools overall.
Yeah, it seems to me it's not just a tools thing, but an education thing. And there's everybody who uses technology, everybody who uses email needs to know some things, right? You don't click on attachments from people who send you things that you weren't expecting. You know, there are certain things that you should never do. They just make common sense. I mean, and that's how they get in. You know, they pose as your friend or your mother or your brother or your sister or aunt, and they say, "I just saw this on the internet. Thought you might be interested." You click on it. You have no idea what you're clicking on. You know. And then, of course, when you do get there, something pops up that says, "Hey, you have a virus. Click here to clean it." Oh, yeah, that's brilliant.
I've actually spent quite a number of years in the industry in the field, and you would end up in remote locations and with wonderful national staff who are, honestly working their butts off. But sometimes the agencies need to sit down to ensure that they have a modern understanding of the tools they're being asked to use and the risk of those tools, and a lot of times that can be lacking.
I also want to tie it back to the local community charity. I got to think there's a certain number of listeners out there, software developers, maybe they work with their community club or their church group or something like that. They are also holding on to data. While they may not be targeted by black hats, they're certainly vulnerable to drive-bys, and they have the same basic data concerns.
And to your point earlier, Richard, I think what people don't understand is that there's actually now kind of an infrastructure for hackers and bad guys. There's one of the most common password spray tools is like $45.99 and it comes with a support, seriously, with an 800 support number. And
wow.
That is so sick.
So you don't even have to be, it used to be that you have to be this, smart CS student who knows a bit about hacking or something, and now it's so much simpler. You actually just order stuff and you buy it. It comes with the most popular, password spray list, but if you want to upload your own custom one, you can give it, and it runs it and it gives you which password succeeded and which ones failed against an endpoint, whatever the endpoint.
I would love to hear report that support conversation.
Yeah. So what site are you trying to break into?
Let me try.
Yeah, let's see if I can do it for you.
Oh yeah, we're at the end. We're inches away from hacking as a service. My goodness.
I think we're there, man.
Yeah,
we're there. So they are now starting to basically attack both Azure and AWS by simply spinning up their servers there for a while before we can detect that they're bad guys, and they're starting to. Because we're starting to use intelligence in our ability to detect attacks. It's no longer simply, password, we don't have a hard lockout concept in, for example, most of Microsoft's identity solutions. We actually have a kind of a smart lockout where we kind of detect the pattern to see, is this just a user who has a phone that's got an old password and simply hammering away, or is this a bad guy trying to hack into your account? And they're starting to now build machine learning solutions on top of these clouds to run them against our endpoints to basically build their own conclusions about how we are detecting them. So we're almost there as a hacking as a service. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. No. It's Tarek, you're describing an arms race to me too. That you're clearly, the public cloud providers, the Azures, Amazons of the world, are gearing up and arming up and getting more sophisticated. But it sure sounds like the attackers are too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that sort of goes back to the conversation we have with these agencies, which is, turning to an organization, like, what are your core competencies? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're not actually an IT oriented organization, then what steps have you taken? Are you using cloud solutions and then relying on somebody who's got more experience on this to handle it and keep you secure? Or are you trying to do it all yourself? And there's nothing actually wrong with doing it all yourself, but do you have the right skill sets to ensure that you're doing it correctly? And if you can't answer that last portion, then you really need to look at the first portion.
There is an argument to say that every company is now a software company in one sense, but let's not have that argument this time. Let's just, because it's I think it's an interesting angle, and I'm sure it'll just alienate a certain number of people. But you're using the internet, you have computers, your donors and your volunteers and your management all have smartphones, so they're all carrying computers with them all the time. There's an issue here, one way or the other. And now that we've sufficiently scared everybody, what do we do about it?
Yeah, and in particular, I'd like to hear some stories, both of some attacks that have happened and how people have fought back.
We have examples, obviously without names, but so we're putting in some really cool technology. I think commercially we call it identity protection, for example, on the enterprise side. But it's also actually backing even the consumer side, like your Xbox Live account, your Hotmail account that you don't pay anything for. So we're still trying to protect with the same technology. And we have examples. Alex Weinert, head of identity security in our division, he gives talks at like RSA conference and gray hat conferences, where he shows an attack on a school, basically where a hacker was trying to basically password spray the school, and how we were able to immediately distinguish his attempts to log in from the students, and then slowly block him while keeping the students. So basically, he may be trying the same account that is actually successfully logging in with the same password, but he would get a response that it's a failed login, and the kid would be allowed to log in. So it takes a lot of smarts to actually get there, because it's not simply IP detection. It's a combination of things that we call your login profile.
Yeah.
But success story, because we were able to detect the attack, block it, prevent it, frustrate him to where he stopped and walked away, and then the school was never even aware that this was happening altogether.
Well, that is a success.
So you didn't let him know he'd been caught. You let him continue to try, but no password to give was ever going to work.
Exactly, until he gave up. So basically, and
Love
he
it.
walked on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like that approach. It's like not tipping your hand that you've been seen. Rather, this go ahead, waste your time. There is no password that's going to work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very interesting game of cat and mouse. So they also have their own detection mechanisms to see, for example, if you return a 404 or a 401 as a response, are you taking longer on certain 401s than the others? Because
Right.
they try to guess from that this is maybe an indicator that the username was right, but the password was wrong, or that both were wrong. And so there's a lot of effort we do on our part to also make sure that when we're bluffing, we're actually responding at what looks like exactly the same time and the same way that we do when we're actually responding correctly. It's a very sophisticated game.
Guys, hold that thought for a minute while we take a moment to hear this very important message. We've all come to expect that distributed databases can't be both globally consistent and scalable. But what if you didn't have to make trade-offs? What if you could have a fully managed database service that's consistent, scales horizontally across data centers, and speaks SQL? Introducing Cloud Spanner, a mission-critical relational database service from Google Cloud Platform. Built from the ground up and battle-tested at Google for strong consistency and high availability at a global scale. Learn more about Cloud Spanner online at g.co/getspanner. That's g.co/getspanner. And we're back. It's .NET Rocks. Carl Franklin and Richard Campbell talking to Cameron Birge and Tarek Dawoud about security, in particular what they're doing about managing break-ins and hackers in nonprofits. And not just nonprofits, but this sounds like you guys have got some good strategies for dealing with all kinds of attacks.
Well, I mean, it's not really strategies. There are some overall steps that we are advocating for that nonprofits and other humanitarian organizations should be taking, and actually just industries and everybody should be taking in general. Yeah. And sort of like there's 5 key areas that we highlight, and you'll notice none of them are actually about using a specific technology. It's about actually your practices and your policies.
Yeah, okay.
And like the first one is like, don't create your own standards. This work has been done.
Yeah, known problem.
Known problem. I mean, we advocate, the message we're giving out is the use of the NIST framework. And what that allows you to do in that framework, which is a U.S. framework, but it works around the world. All it is it sits down and has you walk through what's important to you, where your responsibilities are, have you self-identify your weaknesses, and then try to figure out what order you need to go in to start addressing. Because you can't fix everything all at once. Nobody has the resources and time for that, and we know that. And not everything is necessarily the highest risk. So it's about help you walk through and be a guide and be a reference you turn to later on. And that's like step 1 that we advocate for. And like the next one is, again, partner up, join coalitions. We are where there's a nonprofit we know that they ended up having an unfortunate cyber intrusion. It took them months actually to go ahead and remove the intrusion off their network. In the process, though, they actually ended up having a relationship with a security firm, and they wished they had had the relationship before. And the firm was great, really helped them walk through. And they later figured out, and the advice they started giving to others in the coalition was hire a partner with hours, guaranteed hours, to do one of 2 things. Either one, if you have an incident, they're already on contract to come help you out immediately, bring in professionals. And if you don't have an incident, they'll help you with your rehearsals. Like, so how do we practice a future event? So they join up with those out there and learn the lessons from others. Those are the first 2 right there.
And not to play on the nonprofit side, but do you find that these firms are willing to at least make a discount for someone that's in the charitable configuration, or is that even relevant?
We definitely have seen that. I mean, even our partners that we work with, helping other agencies to help other agencies support nonprofits. Yes, and that is definitely part of the conversation, and that's been seen. And it all depends on the company. So I can't. They
have to make a living too, right? Like
exactly, they do have to make a living.
Yeah, it's not like this stuff is easy or free.
Right. But they will help with actually our third point, which is actually train employees, which can be one of the hardest ones. And there's a great story. It wasn't a nonprofit story, but one that was told to me here, which was fantastic. And it was quite a large company. And what they did was they were teaching about phishing. And if they had taught about phishing, and then they sent out their own fake phishing emails. And if you clicked on it, well, your name was noted, and you had to receive a 1-hour training.
Right.
And later on, if you failed a second time, you had to do the training again and then take a test. And if you failed a third time, the CEO called you personally.
Wow. Let's not get there.
Yeah.
I had a customer who had an employee who clicked on 6 links in the
Oh my goodness.
Wow. He or she needed a call from the CEO.
What are you doing?
Exactly. But the takeaway is, in these agencies as well, because the nonprofit industry and humanitarian agencies, they do have a lot of staff turnover. And that's just the nature of it. It'll depend on when they get grants. It'll depend on the projects they're working on. And so awareness has to be more than just a PowerPoint presentation when you sign up with your new contract. It is something that has to be, tested and re-emphasized, and ensuring that managers emphasize. And that's the biggest thing, is the habits of the managers, because the staff are going to copy what they do. Are they behaving the right way and presenting the right messages? So
yeah, and it starts with like even deeper basic conversations around, is there a shared password with a shared account that everybody's using to hit the case management system? You want to break these things because you want to know who accessed the system at what time or who made that change. And these are non-tech conversations.
Yeah.
If you had pen and paper, would you have wanted to know who's making the changes? And so having these conversations, and I think there's also like basic postures about, for example, your privileged accounts, the things that set up let's say you're completely cloud present, and we're not even going to stick to Microsoft Tech, so Office 365, Google Apps, whatever you're using to just establish your basic collaboration software like email and things like that. The people who set up the privileged accounts, you should have multi-factor authentication on all of them. That's just the
period.
Yeah.
So even though about all this advanced intelligent stuff, there's way before that, there are very simple steps you can take on a very basic level to protect. These are the root admins, the guys who can set things up. These accounts have to be protected. It cannot be just a password between the bad guy and the thing.
It's a very common conversation on the other show, on Run As Radio, the IT show, this whole just enough administration. And, rule number 1 is, as an admin, thou shalt not web surf using an administrator account. You have a domain account like everybody else. You use it.
Wow, good.
Exactly.
And they granularize the administrator account, so there's no super account that anybody uses anymore. It's like, are you working on the file servers? There's a file server administrator account, like that granularization, so that you're only in those accounts to do the specific things you need to do and then get out. And just so that and you're right, all that 2-factor stuff. It's like, this account is used intentionally. It's also heavily scrutinized. Like, part of our responsibility on the security side is like, who is in admin accounts? How long were they in admin accounts? Why were they in admin accounts? It's only for administrative work.
And know where your audit logs are. So
yeah.
Do you even know, can you get to them in the UI of whatever service you're using to even check and see who's making changes? We just had a case yesterday, a customer who discovered they were being breached by the virtue of the fact that their cloud audit logs showed that one of their on-premises service accounts was logging into the cloud.
Interesting.
That's how they discovered the whole breach, basically. That they were breached on-prem, not in the cloud. But the way they found out is that guy started roaming in the cloud with that service account he had on-prem.
And they were able to take actions and cut them out.
Yeah, that's sort of the flag.
On-prem, it's a big deal, because once they found out they were breached on-prem, they discovered that they have to blow up their whole AD, basically. You have to restructure AD. The cloud was easier to mitigate.
And I think you're mentioning a really valid thing here, Tarek, which is not like a sign pops out of your server when you get hacked. It goes, ha ha. Actually figuring out that you've been hacked is not a trivial problem.
Yeah.
Yep. The average hacker stays, and it's in the white paper, 140 days on average.
Wow. Before detection.
Before detection.
That's down from 270 2 years ago. It's actually now down to half, but still, that's a lot of months, right?
And then even after detection, it'll take you months to recover.
Sure. But, you should, when you see something suspicious like that account misuse, you got to understand it's probably been going on for months before you finally saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that's why when you hire these firms after the fact, they come in and the first thing they try to do, they may not actually tip their hat or let the bad guy know that they're in. They just, because they want to know how far has he been moving or she's been moving around. Are they've been around here for a while? What servers have they been into? And so they have to actually watch for a little bit before they actually start blowing things up.
Yeah. And of course, your reflex is to immediately lock everything down, but then...
Which you have to operate. You have to still exist. You still have business operations going on.
Yeah, you can't get to do that.
And it's part of also the last 2 points that we emphasize with nonprofits. I mean, that's the resilience point, like Tarek was talking about. So, I mean, what are you going to do if this does happen? Do you have the capacity to actually recover operations? If somebody has brought in the famous USB drive from their friend in the field and plugged it into your network, are you going to be able to recover from that? And then also an area that is growing is the insurance area. So the thing about getting yourself insurance over such a thing, it does two things. One, provides you a little financial air cover if you need it to help recover your business operations. And two, you end up being accountable for regular inspections and reporting. Like it is sort of an audit to ensure that you are doing the right things. They are going to ask you, who's your partner to help you with this? Where is your expertise in this? And it does sort of force you for that accountability, while also at the same time giving you access to some support if the worst does happen.
I think the GDPR rules that are coming this year are going to help with getting budget around stuff like insurance, because they are talking serious fines for breaches.
Yes. Serious fines for breaches, and also senior management has to present their compliance before the breach and their awareness of the compliance.
Right.
Yeah.
You have requirements to notify once you are aware of a breach within a certain number of days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Richard.
Yeah, buddy.
Guess what time it is?
It must be that happy time again.
Yes. It's time to announce a new product to help you hack biometric fingerprint readers. It's called the X-Hacto knife.
Oh, no.
It's very effective, but the setup process can be a bit difficult.
Bloody?
I think I saw that in a movie somewhere. Anyway.
Easier to do with gummy bears. No, it's true. You heat up a gummy bear, so it's nice and soft.
You're not supposed to give away those secrets, Richard.
They did it on Mythbusters. I'm just saying.
All right.
Gummy bears.
It's actually time to give away a DXperience subscription to one lucky member of the .NET Rocks fan club. Become a UI superhero with DevExpress UI controls and libraries, and deliver elegant .NET solutions that address customer needs today, and leverage your existing knowledge to build next-generation touch-enabled solutions for tomorrow. Whether it's an Office-inspired application or a data-centric analytics dashboard, DevExpress Universal ships with everything you'll need to build your best, without limits or compromise. And check out their DevExtreme React Grid, built from the ground up to fully support all the cool features that come with React, like the virtual DOM, and state controllers like Redux. It supports master detail, sorting, grouping, paging, and editing, and you can check it out for free on GitHub. But learn more and download your free 30-day trial of DevExpress Universal at devexpress.com/superhero.
Well, all right, buddy. Who's our winner?
Today's winner is Ivan Vasilevich.
Congratulations, Ivan.
Yes.
Are those the clappers?
The clappers.
I heard the clappers.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a pair of those in my bag, so when we're out in the field, like in London.
When we were in London, we could have been using clappers.
But it's so much better to get a round of applause.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Especially when we're on stage and you can have several hundred people applauding for someone.
Yeah, that winner probably felt really lucky.
Yeah, no question. Well, they will, because it's the next show after this one.
Yeah.
He said, time shifting like crazy.
He said, well, Ivan just won the DXperience subscription. That's a big pile of awesome from our friends at DevExpress, just for being a member of the .NET Rocks fan club. And if you don't know what that is, go to .NETRocks.com, click on the big Get Free Stuff button, answer a few questions, and join the fan club. We have thousands of members all over the world. In every show, we like to give away stuff from our sponsors. And every December, we give away a $5,000 technology shopping spree to one lucky member of the .NET Rocks fan club. But you got to sign up to win. And now it's your turn, guys. If you had $5,000 to spend on technology today, what would you buy? Cameron?
That is a great question. If I had $5,000, I know what I would get. I'd get myself the Surface Hub.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can spend a lot more than $5,000 on a Surface Hub. You get that 80-inch version. I think it's 20.
Yes.
You guys might get an employee discount.
Exactly. See, that's what I'd be relying on.
But I think there is. The small one's like 55 inches. I've contemplated that because it's just it's like the ultimate projector. It's such a good gizmo.
They're just beautiful and fun, and
they're gorgeous.
We don't have access to them as at my team, so we do look at them on some other desk and be like, "Wow."
Well, they've been sold out for years now. Like they can't make them fast enough.
Wow.
It's just one of those products that Microsoft barely ever talks about because they literally can't make enough of them.
Yeah, this stuff advertising.
I played with the 85-inch at Tim Huckabee's place at Internology. It's like, I like a screen that you literally cannot get your arms around. It's and then he kicked it into 1080p mode, and the icons are the size of my head. And I got a big head.
How about you, Tarek?
I don't know, Xbox One, and then pocket the rest.
Yeah, nice.
Okay.
One S, I presume, right? The full 4K edition.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. We did have a winner a couple of years ago who built out a full dev machine for building stuff for Xbox that included the Xbox. And all the paraphernalia. It's interesting. You know, we're indulgent when we're just like, hey, if you had $5,000, what would you do? But when you actually confront the winner with the money, they're so practical.
Sure.
Yeah, they build new dev machines, but always different, like focused on mobile development or focused on...
The last guy got a lot of monitors.
Yeah, no, I super appreciate it. That's a theme of mine, right? It's like, look, you use that monitor every day, get a good one.
And it's not something that you typically splurge on yourself. You know, you say, I can make do with this cheaper one, whatever.
Yeah. And I completely disagree with that. Spend money on your keyboard, spend money on your mouse, spend money on your monitor.
I agree.
And spend money on your Wi-Fi router because you use it every day.
And buy some roses for your spouse. Tarek, I understand that you have some great stories about fixing security.
Sure. We have examples of customers who were breached on premises who were able to get back to being operational because we have solutions. For example, most people get to Office 365 with either cloud accounts or on-premises accounts.
Right.
On-premises accounts, you have a few options. You can actually use a federation server so that the authentication comes down to on-premises and then you authenticate and then you go back to the cloud. Or you can synchronize your password hashes, not your passwords, your password hashes, because everybody freaks about, my passwords are in the clear text. No, they're not. A hash is a one-way mathematical operation. So, but with this one customer specifically, they were attacked by the WannaCry, Pydia, ransomware stuff in the summer, and they were completely debilitated. They were telling us these horror stories about how they're sitting in the IT operations center and the screens they're looking at are all going to turn black with the thing popping up in front of them. Those are the machines they're trying to use to look after all the other machines.
Wow.
And because they were using the password hashing technology, within the first 2 days, they were able to simply switch the cloud authentication from the Federation server to the cloud so that at least all their collaboration software, Exchange, SharePoint, they can still continue to function just fine. And while they worked on, let's nuke AD and start over and new domain controllers, or let's restore from backup, and that process takes a good week.
Wow.
Just to get back to where you have your core servers up and running, your file servers, and so on. Another customer who didn't have that, for that same week, they were basically using Yahoo emails and Hotmail and Gmail because they had no collaboration infrastructure, right? They couldn't authenticate to their own email. So they had to basically go use personal email. Like, I'm going to WhatsApp you this information. Yeah. Big difference.
Yeah, no, huge difference between the two. And it's interesting to see what gets exploited and what doesn't in that particular scenario. Now, with a WannaCry, it's an outage. Like, you find out your attack because you're broken.
Just briefly tell us about that, WannaCry.
So it was ransomware that was basically, it was actually came out a few weeks ago that it was designed actually to attack some popular accounting software in Ukraine. But of course, as with these things, once they are on the wild, just like normal viruses and diseases, they just go everywhere. And so it showed up in the UK very heavily, and it brought down part of the health system. Actually, it crippled the hospital, several hospitals actually, because the malware itself, once it gets to a computer, it tries to gets to root level access, kernel level access, and then encrypts your drive, and then pops up a ransomware message that says, if you want this content, pay this much. And it does that, and it was just very irreverent and just very crazy that it typically wanted to target end user or consumer PCs, but it was actually moving all across the network. That was basically doing this to your file servers, your print servers, everything. It was just running wild. Domain controller, if it landed anything, it would just lock it up and pop up that thing. And so that just became very debilitating for a couple of our customers, and we had to work very close with the cybersecurity team to actually help them get back on their feet.
A lot of those things resolve themselves by the people just giving in and paying the money. How did you guys undo it?
Most of the big enterprises, they did not pay the money. I mean, maybe individuals did, but most of the big enterprises, what they had to do is basically, first of all, you find, and if you're doing proper AD backup, then there's a copy of your domain controller a few days old that it doesn't, so you bring that back up first of all, so that you don't have to re-establish accounts for your users with new passwords and new everything from scratch, and then teach everybody their new credentials. That's a big hit.
Sure.
So once you can restore your AD backup, then you start bringing your file servers from clean again, one by one. If you had backups of those, good, then you can restore the data there again, a few days old. But the whole key point is identifying when you were first infected. Now, the good thing about this one, because it was such a bad ransomware, you knew when you got first infected because it didn't give you any time. It was just running crazy. So, but a more subtle attack, you would have a harder time figuring out the point in time where the ransomware was on your network.
And those things, how was that spread? It was spread by email?
I think the first attack would come through a phishing attack with an attachment or a link that you click on and would install it on your machine. But then it spread horizontally through the LAN very quickly. Yeah,
it's interesting how those initial breaches happen. Like they're quite intelligently targeted these days. It seems like there are good lists of real email addresses of senior people in organizations, so that you're not just randomly bombing emails. You tend to get it sent to the right person from the right person, so that they click on it.
I mean, the issue is and it happens, especially some of the larger ones, and we've heard the stories, but you'll have hack teams that have decided to target you, and they'll have social analysis being done on the key senior staff. And they will be looking at your public persona, and then that way they'll know your kids' names, and then that way the links are about pictures of something relevant that looks like it's from a friend of yours. So they're sitting there and they're working on your profile to ensure that they're targeting you specifically when they've decided to go after an organization.
Are there services out there that you can forward suspicious emails to and say, is this a phishing attack or not?
There are, and we have our own Office product. Our group has the ATP, Advanced Threat Protection, which what it does, it will detonate when you're getting an attachment in an email. It will actually spin up a quick VM, open Outlook there, open the attachment there, see what actually happens, and then if it feels that it's safe, it will let it through. If it looks like suspicious or malicious, it will hold the attachment. All of this dynamically, like without you even being aware of it.
Right.
So it doesn't even end up in your inbox if it's detonated and doesn't like the attachment.
Wow. That's very smart.
That's an Azure service?
It's an Office offering, an Office 365.
It's the Advanced Threat Protection, right?
Yes.
Yeah. A little bit more on the IT side, but it's like you can be using Exchange Online or even Exchange on premise, and you can be using Advanced Threat Protection, and it does stuff like that for you.
Right.
Yep.
What about these more? We mentioned a scenario where you notice an account being misused, and that's the beginning of sort of unraveling a hack that has literally gone on for months. Like, what is the correct sort of process? Or can you walk us through a scenario that you've been through to clean that up?
The first thing, as Cameron mentioned, is you got a cybersecurity firm and they do forensics. First and foremost, you have to understand how wide the attack and this is. This just one guy who got lucky?
I got to think you're still at a point where you're saying, is this an attack?
But more importantly, how far? What is the attack? So, for example, I work with a customer who was compromised. The bad guys got in through a regular, typically external account. That a lot of customers, what they do is they create AD accounts for external people who are coming in to do work with them, like vendors and contractors. And in this case, this person came through that, got through the VPN because the VPN did not have MFA on it, so it was just username and password. Came in and then elevated to domain admin, and then elevated to enterprise admin. But that person was trying to go to the credit card information.
Right.
So that person was not trying to debilitate the company. They were just trying to get to the credit card. They were trying to steal, like the Target hack, for example.
And his goal being that you never knew he was there. He's got the credit card information and he's gone.
Exactly. In this case, it's so subtle, and just because he made some mistake where he triggered something inside the credit card system before he got to the data, where they were able to see that, and then they had to leave him there, and hire the security firm, got the security firm in to look and watch for a bit more to see what is he trying to do. Because at that point, all they knew is that someone has an enterprise admin creds in their AD and is running around. So
that's got to be so creepy feeling. Wow.
Exactly, yep. But it's necessary, because if you're going to... Once you decide I'm going to stop them, you have to know, what are you going to stop? Are you going to just blow up AD? Are you just going to delete an account? What is it that you're trying to do? How many other credentials do they have? Yeah. Because the whole key point is, I could kill the enterprise admin account that they're using, but they may have a domain admin and then they come back again after a little bit.
Right.
And so you have to know everything that they have if you're going to show your cards. If once you show your hand, you have to actually be pretty certain you have a good handle on what they have.
Right.
So, takeaway from Tarek is you need to have that competency in-house that has capacity to do that. If you sit down and acknowledge you don't have that competency, then you need to have a relationship with somebody who does.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that person's not going to immediately slam the door. They're going to watch for a while to make sure they know what doors are open.
That's very typical from in the industry.
Yeah, it's got to be agonizing, right? To just know that that's going on.
And one thing I wanted to mention, especially for developers, since the audience, a lot of the audience is developers, is
yes.
You guys often write software for nonprofits. I volunteer a nonprofit myself. Our website is developed by a single helpful guy who's just doing it for us for free.
Nice.
But understand that you're also part of the security question and the security answer out of the security problem, which is for small things like, for example, the credentials that are used for the DNS registry, just the registrar that has your www.nonprofit.org.
Yeah.
You set it up for them. What do you have MFA there, multi-factor authentication, or is it just username and password? For those who are not aware, one of the Bitcoin alternatives, Ethereum, was compromised because not from an attack on their servers or a DDoS or anything, the hacker was able to take over the DNS account, and then he just redirected all the traffic to his site instead of... So, very subtle, didn't come anywhere near their infrastructure. He just went for the account that has the DNS registry in it.
Wow.
So you have to basically, as a developer, to think about this whole pipe. The DNS records, where are they? The website, the infrastructure that's hosting the website, what is it? And keep an eye on the vulnerabilities of your stack. There's no perfect stack. All stacks get compromised and hit. And if you write something for someone using Apache version whatever, IIS version whatever, keep an eye on the vulnerabilities and keep them patched. Don't leave them with something that's 5 years old running on the web, because that leaves them very exposed.
And it goes back to also the managers of the nonprofits. When you actually have these volunteers and they're motivated and they're excited, that's great. What are they building for you? And are you, as a senior manager, aware of possible risks that this work can expose you to? So have you taken the steps to mitigate it? Are you ensuring that volunteers' work doesn't leave you more exposed?
Sure, as generous as it might be. Is the OWASP list still relevant in this equation?
The OWASP, what list?
Yeah, the OWASP top 10 application security risks.
Oh, OWASP, OWAS.
Yeah. freshly, refreshed for 2017. Number one, still SQL injection.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are still there. Yes, absolutely. And of course, it's a good question to ask as a person who's hiring a developer, if he's aware of those. Can he tell you what is the S in strike or the D, right? The strike model for security. Like, are they able to kind of, if they're not aware of any of that stuff, you might want to worry, or you might want to have somebody, or you get somebody to oversee what they're doing.
Sure. I don't need every dev to be a security expert, but I do need a security expert around to at least, have some oversight.
And this is a call out also to folks in the security field or close to the security field. Nonprofits can help can use your help if you can volunteer to help them look at their stuff, to evaluate their position and so forth. There's a lot of need out there.
Yeah, no, I got to agree with you. Like it's a constant thing. And, Humanitarian Toolbox has the distinct advantage of being tied to .NET Rocks and having guys like Barry Dorrance and Troy Hunt and other great security folks that are willing to donate their time to look at our stuff and tell us how we screwed it up.
Yeah. Yep.
So last week we published a show with Scott Guthrie. He was talking about a really cool button on the Azure portal that you could push, and it sort of does all this analysis and comes up with this list of things that you should be doing. Are there security checkpoints in there too in Azure that you can just say, hey, look at my websites, look at all of my code, and tell me if I'm exposing myself?
There is the Azure Security Center in the portal, and that looks at all your IaaS, PaaS that you're running and kind of tells you best practices. There is a paid layer of Azure Security Center, Azure Security ATP, Advanced Threat Protection, which does more.
Right.
But at least do the basics. Yeah, and this is actually part of something. Again, you're a developer, you're writing something on Azure for a nonprofit. Do the basics. For example, is your own account that logs in there, is it multi-factor authenticated? Are you using Azure RBAC to limit the access? For example, if you're a VM owner, you don't need to be a VM owner just to get logs. You can be a VM reader. You don't have to be an owner. So make sure that you're using least privilege. The third thing, for example, is this is stuff we learn in Microsoft because we run services, is you should have a process by which you push out the logs from your production machines to somewhere else where you look at them. Don't make it such that every time you want to look at the logs, you have to TS into the machine. You're just, because you're logged into an actual production machine. At some point, if you screw something up, you can actually bring down the service. What you should do is push out your logs outside and look at your logs somewhere else. And so have these best practices. These are not something just for superpower software companies that are making big cloud services. You should have these practices even for small websites. They're good things to do.
Awesome.
Yeah, very good. Guys, thanks. It's been an enlightening hour.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. This has been great.
All right, Cameron, Tarek, thanks again. And we'll see you next time on .NET Rocks. .NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net and produced by PWOP Studios, a full-service audio, video, and post-production facility located physically in New London, Connecticut, and of course in the cloud. Online at pwop.com. Visit our website at dotnetrocks.com for RSS feeds, downloads, mobile apps, comments, and access to the full archives going back to show number 1, recorded in September 2002. And make sure you check out our sponsors. They keep us in business. Now go write some code. See you next time.
Got transmitter banned by the FCC. Yes, I'm a toy boy. Life is hard.